Welcome to our video. Today we're going to be talking about the Olympic turner, which is a piece of standing equipment. It can be used for assisting to stand and short distance transfers, bed to chair, chair to bed, commode, etc. I'm going to start by talking about the product and just show you all the features on it, along with a couple of belts as well. And then I'll grab a volunteer to come and be my resident patient service user, and I'll show you how to stand them using the different options and different belts. So first of all, it's a standing turner. It has on here 2 large wheels and 4 small casters on each corner. That's so that it moves around forwards, backwards, but also will pivot on the spot, so we can do a pivot transfer as well. From there we have brakes on the left and the right. Brakes can be on or off. They're signified by red or green, go and stop. And we also have these knee blocks, which are fully adjustable. They spin around and they also go up and down. So if we undo the little pins, just pull the little pins back here at the back, we can actually slide those up and down to position them. Ideally, we'll talk about this more in a little while, just underneath the kneecap. Occasionally there is the need to put them on somebody's kneecap, but again, we'll discuss that in a little while. We have multiple positions here at the top where somebody can hold on, and the centerpiece here is for one of the belts, which I'm going to show in a second. The other belt, because there's 2 options with this one, we use these 2 discs at the side. So depending on which belt option you choose, on the person that's being stood and what support they need, these are the 2 options we're going to use. So if I just grab the belt to show you, there's 2 here. The first one here we'll look at is the safety belt, like so. So if I'll pop this around myself so you can see how it works. It will pop around my waist and sit just above the coccyx, just below the belt line behind me. So it's going to support the hips. It's not going physically all the way underneath my bottom. And then we also have a long strap which is adjustable. And what this will do is support me in standing using this, but again we'll see that in more detail when I ask my colleague to volunteer. The second belt we have is called a ladder belt, and it's called that because it looks a bit like a ladder. It's quite long and it has a slidey padded sleeve on the belt itself, which slides backwards and forwards. If I pull the belt through, you'll see it slide. This again will go behind the person's bottom, down to the coccyx, and this supports somebody up into standing. It can be used by one carer. So one caregiver can actually assist somebody to stand on this. They can counterbalance from behind and assist them up using one hand, and it pulls a person's hips forward into a good standing position. So instead of physically getting into contact with the person you're standing and lifting them, this will do it, and it's much easier, much smoother. It also helps to lower them back into the chair once you've stood them and you're ready to sit back down into a chair, toilet, commode, side of the bed, etc. But again, I'll show you that in just 1 second. So they're the 2 belts. This particular one attaches to the ladder sections. There will attach onto the discs on either side, and they can attach anywhere on there depending on how high you want to support somebody. So if I was in here and being stood, if I clip one onto that side, I could be supported in a perched semi-seated position, like so. If I wanted to be stood further, we can stand further up and support higher up. Excuse me, there you go. So any position, and we can adjust both sides to suit the position that we want to support somebody in. And this means now I can't fall out of this sling. So I can be transported safely from A to B. Again, short distances. You can go from room to room with this. We'd normally recommend within the same room, but if you were going to an ensuite bathroom, for example, this might be the best way of getting somebody from the edge of the bed to straight to the ensuite toilet. We just need to make sure the door's wide enough and there is no threshold on the floor. So if you have a threshold which is quite a chunky step between, for example, a carpet and a tiled floor, this cannot be used. It will go over with nobody on it, but we shouldn't be transporting a person on there. Only if it's a flat threshold. So we're now back with our handsome volunteer. So I'm going to ask James here to stand himself up, basically. We're not going to use any of the belts, first of all. We'll go on to the belts after this one. So we're going to use the standing device on its own. Then we're going to use the safety belt, which is kind of the next level. And then we're going to use the ladder belt, which I'm going to physically assist James into standing. So the first thing we're going to do is ask James if he can to lift his feet and put them on the foot plate as I bring it in. We're going to ask him to shuffle slightly forward in the chair. Again, somebody that can stand up on their own with minimal assistance is going to be able to shuffle a bit and help you. Probably going to raise their own feet and put them on here. If not, I might need to come down and assist James's feet or one of his feet onto the turner. So James can do that for me. Pop your feet onto there, and I'm just going to bring that in between the chair. Now we can adjust the knee support at this point up and down if we need to, but that's in a position which should be okay for James, just there. So again, we're going just below the kneecap, moving joint. Once we're in this position, put the brakes on before we attempt to stand. Now, it must be counterbalanced by the caregiver, in this case me. You can use a foot on the back, you can use a hand or two hands on the top, or you can do both. I tend, if I'm doing this and both hands are free, I tend to pop one foot on there and just hold the unit at the side here. We can ask James to hold on wherever he feels comfortable, anywhere on there, and then if you'd like to just stand up yourself. And James can stand. If he's okay and he's supported well, if he's steady on his feet, we could then potentially take the brakes off and we could move James away from the unit, pivot him round towards you guys. We can put him onto another piece of equipment, a shower commode chair, a toilet, an armchair, etc. So I'm just going to take him back to the chair. Once we get back to the chair there, I'm going to pop the brakes on again, counterbalance again, always when standing or sitting, counterbalance again, and James, just have a seat for me. There you go. And it's as simple as that. One of the main benefits of this product here, unlike something like a rotunda, Samuel Turner, your basically pivot turners, once James has stood, I can only spin him round on the spot, and if the chair or piece of equipment I'm going to transfer him onto isn't close enough, there's nothing I can do. I can't move James to the chair. So we have to go back where we started, then move the equipment in line, and then start again with another stand pivot and hope that the equipment is perfectly in line. If you just raise your feet off there, let them come off there. Obviously with this one, because it pivots but also moves, it means I can move James so that he's perfectly in line with a new piece of equipment wherever it might be. So it makes life a bit easier. Now, the next step, if James can maybe stand on his own or maybe needs minimal assistance, the issue we have using the safety belt is because James maybe is unsteady on his feet. And behind the camera that you guys can't see, we have a bed. If I was transferring James from here down to the bed in the same room, maybe that's too far for him. Maybe standing up for too long, it gets him a bit unsteady, he's a bit wobbly. So in that case, we're going to use the safety belt. So this belt here, again, I'm going to ask James if you can just shuffle slightly forward in the chair. I've moved the armrest out of the way of the chair here so you can see exactly where the belt's going to go behind James. The elastic strap is for James's back, for his lower spine. We're going to place the belt down just where it starts to tuck under his bottom and then around. And James is quite able, so he can fasten that himself. So it just fastens with the Velcro at the front. Then we have this long strap here, which comes around and fastens on there. So again, James is all ready. There are handles on here, down at the side here and at this side. So if I needed to assist James up a little bit, we shouldn't be physically lifting, but we could do a normal sit to stand that most people are taught in their manual handling training. James, if you want to place your feet on there a little bit, bring the unit in, brakes go on. So we're ready. So again, I need to counterbalance because James is doing the standing himself this time. So whenever you're ready, you can hold on and stand up. And if James stands fully forward, we can then attach this long belt here onto the center. Now, James, if you have a seat for me, try and sit down. You can't. So he's fully supported for when I move him away from the chair. I'll turn him around this way so you can see where the belt's positioned on here. So James can't fall backwards, he can't sit down. If his bottom collapses backwards, it brings his legs forwards into the knee pad So he's actually locked in that stud position now. And when we go back to the chair, get him back into position, again the brakes go on. So when James is ready to sit, I'm just going to release that belt from there and allow you to sit down yourself. Brakes off, and we'll move this out of the way. So it's really simple and easy, and the safety belt is called the safety belt for transport. If you're taking this unit a little bit further, if somebody's a bit unsteady, it's to keep them safe when they're stood up. They can't fall, they can't wobble, they're physically locked into the unit there. So by the magic of video, we're now back with the same unit, James, and a different belt this time. So this is the ladder belt, and this is for assisting James up in standing, basically. James can still do some of the work. This is a stand aid device. It's to aid somebody to stand. It's not to do it all for them. I'll show you in a minute how I physically can't stand James on my own. So if James, for example, can put 50% of the effort into stand, I can assist him with the belt. It may be that James can stand from a rise and recliner because we can raise the chair up high enough for him. Maybe a high-low bed, but he can't stand from a dining chair, or maybe the toilet, which is too low, and he may need assistance of this. It may just be because he's getting a little bit weaker, but we don't want to jump straight to a full stand aid or even a hoist. So we're going to do exactly the same as we did before as far as the unit's concerned. Bring this in towards him, ask James to put his feet on there, can he shuffle forward, do all of that, and then we're ready to go. So bring this in, I'm just going to pop the brakes on. Now I normally do this right-handed from this side, but you can do it left or right-handed. So today I'm going to do it left-handed so you can see a bit better what's happening. It may be that you can't get to one side because of the way furniture's set out, so it works on both sides. As we're going to do it left-handed, I'm going to attach onto my right-hand side of the unit onto the disc on the longest section of the ladder belt, this top one here. I'm then going to bring the belt, and before we have the sleeve that moves up and down, we need to make sure the sleeve is in contact with James's bottom and not the strap. If the strap is in contact, it's going to cause a lot of shear and friction and twisting of the skin. So make sure the belt comes around to whatever position it needs to be in, and we're just going to tuck that as if we're fitting a sling. It's not going under his bottom, it's actually coming around to support the hips. And I'm going to take hold with my left hand, and we still counterbalance. So if you look at the position I'm in, I'm leaning forward, I'm counterbalancing, I have the strap here, I'm not standing upright and bending over or twisting to the side. If I was stood behind the unit, I'd have to lean and twist. So make sure you slightly offset to the unit so you can step forward and step backwards to position yourself if you need to. Now just to prove a point, never try this at home, but I'm going to try and stand James up, and I'm going to pull really hard on this, and he's not going to move, because it's not for me to stand him, it's for me to assist. So if James, if you want to take hold wherever you want to, and I want you to stand, but put about 50% of the effort in. As soon as James starts, I can then pull forward on the strap and lock this in wherever I want to. James can just sit down, and he's caught. So I've assisted by pulling his hips forward, not actually lifting him off the chair. And James can sit there, and we can then move him round, and you can see the position, how the straps are attached onto there. Hopefully James won't get too dizzy. We can bring him back to the chair, ready to sit down, brakes back on again. Now to release this, because James is sitting on there, it's quite difficult to take this off. So the trick to do this is to stand at an angle, pull gently, move to the side, and then I'm going to get into the same position again at the side here. Now if James sits down, if you just sit down James, I'm in control. He can't actually sit until I let him. Don't hold him in this position, because I'm actually taking some strain there. What I should be doing is just letting him go, but at a controlled speed, so that he sits nicely in the back of the chair. Take this side off, move the unit out of the way, get James comfortable, and then if you lean forward slightly for me, James, we can take the belt out from behind him. And then we have the three ways of using the unit. Firstly, it's for standing, somebody that doesn't need any assistance or help at all and they're steady on their feet. Use the turner on its own. Secondly, with the safety belt, that's somebody that can stand or with minimal assistance. but they actually need the safety and support once they're up. Maybe they're a bit unsteady on their feet. And the ladder belt there, which we use last, that's for assisting somebody to stand and then supporting them once they're stood. You can actually use both belts together, but generally it's unnecessary. The support that this one gives you is more than enough once you've assisted somebody up into standing. I hope that's okay. If anybody has any questions or queries, our contact details will come up here. Drop us an email, give us a phone call, and we'll help in any way we can. Thanks for watching, guys.